Dennis Cox and Chris Lee about to dig in the crates. So turn it up, cause it's time for the culture state. Yeah, we do it for the culture, home of the greats. In the Carolina hood from the culture state. Chris Lee and Dennis Cox about to dig in the crates. So turn it up,
Let's
it's
go.
time for the culture state. It's a Carolina
Welcome to the
state
Culture
of
State
mind.
podcast. This is Chris Lee. That is Dennis Cox. I'm still rocking the paternity leave beard in quotation marks. It's more of a goatee.
It's definitely goatee.
Definitely goatee with some patches on the side on my cheek. You see the outline though, right?
Yeah, okay. There's a little something there. I mean, it's
looks,
far cry from what I got going on, but sure.
It looks like the Hollywood Hogan, like painted on type of thing. It's like the, same type of look, but mine isn't painted on. That's just like almost 3 weeks of work right there.
And it's all going to be gone in just a matter of days.
It's all going to be gone.
All going to be gone. All that work, Chris, gone in a matter of days.
But you know what? It's
television.
Fun. It's fun for me to try to grow this out and see how far I could go, because I don't get an opportunity to do this, right? Like I have to, shave myself every like 2 or 3 days, so I don't have a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow after 2 days.
Yeah, I was born with a 5 o'clock shadow.
you were born with that beard. I would love to express myself that way, but look what I'm working with.
Yeah, well, sometimes we're not all blessed with great genes when it comes to facial hair, Chris.
Yeah,
that's the case.
My dad could grow a great beard. My dad, I feel like he always had a great beard growing up, which is why I want one, because I always looked at my dad and I'm like, man, his beard looks amazing. I can't wait till I grow one of those things. And this is what I won in the genetic lottery. I can't grow a great beard like my dad.
Speaking of the lottery, we haven't hit the Powerball yet, hence why we're still here. Because if we would hit the Powerball, you might not see us ever again.
I will say this, though. If we did win the lottery and we split that, okay?
Yeah.
I would talk out a strategy with you to where we don't quit immediately.
Mm-hmm.
We just make it seem like, we're still here. Everything's normal. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And at some point, we just leave. We could stagger our leaving. You can leave first, or I can leave first, or whatever. Okay. Nobody will ever think anything. And then later on, we'll just meet in like the Maldives on our big yacht as we split $1 billion.
Okay. I was actually thinking of just buying a mountain. Like, I'm going to go buy Blowing Rock. Just buy the town. I'm just going to buy it.
Okay.
And I'm just going to, that's where I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go to western part of North Carolina, buy a mountain, and buy every comic book I have a cottage, and just sit there and read in my hammock all day.
I think we should buy an island.
Why not both? Actually, I'll buy the mountain, you buy the island, and we can visit each other. How about that?
Okay. And then we'll be supremely out of money then.
Who cares at that point? We have a mountain and an island.
As long as we got to talk about some type of revenue stream so we can pay the bills too, because, Anyway, that's deep in the weeds. As far as like riches are concerned, the Carolina Panthers had an opportunity for riches.
They did.
We found out that there were some hefty offers for DJ Moore, for Brian Burns. Mm-hmm. The Brian Burns offer is the one that made me like, whoa, because at first we heard the firsts for 2024 and 2025.
Yeah, 2 firsts.
And then we heard a second for 2023 as well.
Yeah.
And that's the one that made me go, I don't know. I don't think I would take it, but it at least, I at least want to listen to it. It's something I would at least stew over. The 2 firsts by itself, seeing that it wasn't going to come up in the next year, I don't necessarily want it. But it made me kind of want to think about it a little bit.
Well, I look at it as a whole because you mentioned DJ Moore. Apparently, reportedly, this is from Jay Glazer of Fox, that the Packers offered a first-round pick for DJ Moore.
I wouldn't take that.
Well, I look at it as the whole, okay? Maybe not initially, but if you look at a first-round pick for DJ Moore, plus a second-round pick in 2023, plus the 2 future first-round picks for Brian Burns, okay? So 4 picks for those 2 players, 3 of which in the first round. If you look at it, if they would have taken that package as a whole for those 2 players from those 2 teams, again, from the Rams and from the Packers, you're looking at 2 first-round picks this year and 3 second-round picks this year, plus 2 first-round picks in 2024. You could have taken your lower first-round pick, probably from Green Bay, which, if they don't make the playoffs, is going to be in the 20s, or not even, it's going to be in the teens. take that, package your first-round pick from LA in 24, and maybe one of your 3 second-round picks, you can move back up into the top 5 again, potentially. Now you can get a franchise quarterback, and you can go get like a Willie Anderson from Alabama, and you still have 2 second-round picks, and you still have your first-round pick from next year. I was like, I don't know. And plus, here's the thing. You can find great wide receivers in second, third, fourth rounds. Just ask the Pittsburgh Steelers. They do it every year.
And trade them away. And
well,
so
but that's the thing. You can cycle through those guys. You can find those guys. My point is that when you look at it as a whole, 3 firsts and a second, I don't know. I don't know. Plus you could have cleared off DJ Moore's contract. I know you just signed into an extension, but you could have opened up your cap space even further.
So I'm going to use exactly what you said. If you look at it as a whole, I don't think you want to do that. Like, the Brian Burns deal makes me kind of think about it. Not sure if I would actually pull the trigger on it, but it does make me think about it. But here's what I do know. I know what I have in Brian Burns, and I know what I have in DJ Moore. Brian Burns is one of the top 10 pass rushers right now in the NFL. DJ Moore, when he has a decent quarterback who can get them the ball, and now that the offensive line is a little bit better, is capable of being a top 10 wide receiver. And then sometimes he does flash as a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. Especially during the Atlanta game. I think he flashed as that, besides that one drop in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
You know what you already have with that. You're talking about, putting things up to hope and possible potential for these future picks that may not always pan out to where your team has success for another 3 years after that. So now we're talking 2027, 2028 maybe. And right now, what you have in Brian Burns and DJ Moore, and the Panthers already feel like they've addressed a lot of other parts of their team. Now you need the head coach and you need a quarterback. You're going to have a top 10 pick next year. And if you're going to have that quarterback, that with what quarterbacks are getting paid, if you're going to get that first rounder, you have 5 years where this guy is going to be cheap.
Exactly.
5 years. You already have the wide receiver. You have the line now. You could get a running back at some point. You have a decent tight end. You could probably go out and get more. But now you also have the defense to help that young quarterback. And that's the reason why you don't do a fire sale and completely tank and completely strip your team away. It's because when you get that good quarterback that you feel like could potentially translate, they have everything there. And now you have a 5-year window where this guy is cheap and you could potentially win with him if you have everything else right, as in that quarterback and that head coach and that coaching staff. So that's the reason why that's the whole picture I'm looking at. And I don't know if I want to wait until 2027, 2028, 2029 to potentially have all that stuff start to, begin to work out. And now the Panthers are good. They've been bad since 2019. I don't know if you have that time in Charlotte. I don't know if people are going to stick around for that in Charlotte. So you got to keep the fans invested in it. If you keep the fans invested in it, then I think you're going to have better shots.
Well, we've seen in the NFL that you can overhaul a roster in 2 years easily. So that's the thing. If you could have made the moves, you could have got that quarterback. Again, could have got a top defensive player also in the top 5. I'm saying you could have set yourself up for 2 top 5 picks and still have 2 second-round picks this year, and you're not losing any other picks in future years from regarding your own draft.
But DJ Moore and Brian Burns are already, first-round guys.
Oh, I know.
So you're just waiting for the same type of guys later on to mature. Like, you already have those guys.
Here's my thing. You clear up all that cap space, you can I like the better saying, you can mercenary your team to a point. Like, for example, when Seattle was able to not only draft really well, but they were able to sign a bunch of free agents because Russell Wilson was cheap. So those kinds of things. So I think that's something that they could have done because McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson's contracts are off the book after 2023. Yeah. Same thing with Shaq Thompson. If you release him, you could save money. So there's a lot of different things. Like looking at 2024, you could have had all this cap space with that rookie contract. If you would have drafted a Willie Anderson, who, again, all potential, could be as good as Brian Burns. All right, there's a reason why he's probably going to be a top 5 pick.
But I think you also need to make sure that the team is attractive enough for the next head coach. Because I think you already traded away CMC, right? Well, if you end up trading away CMC, Burns and Moore, first off, you're going to lose the community. You're going to completely lose Charlotte. You're going to completely lose the Panthers fan base. So you can't trade all three.
I don't know about that.
You can't trade all three.
That's the thing, I don't know about that because again, you tell me for a new head coach coming into this team, you're like, wait, I got 2 first-round picks this year and 3 second-round picks, and there's a pick. Like I'm like, that's not appealing to me.
A new head coach though also will be one thing that'll be appealing for a new head coach is that you're coming into something that's already somewhat together. It just needs to be refined because knowing, as a head coach now, like Frank Reich just got fired for having in 4 years, went to the playoffs twice, had a 40-33-1 record and got fired, right?
Yeah.
So we know it's not good enough just to win. You got to win spectacularly. You have to do well in the postseason. So if I'm coming in knowing I have this short window, I think I would already want somebody that's established that's there and just see if they fit into what we're doing. And you have Brian Burns again, who's a top 10 pass rusher, who I think is going to, of course, blossom even more once he really figures out the game. And then you have DJ Moore that's there. You could probably eventually trade DJ Moore after you get in the system and all that, but at least you want to have that person there and already have that security blanket that's secured for your new quarterback. If you don't have that guy, then you're just kind of leaving it up to chance. You're going to trust Terrace Marshall. You're going to trust Shi Smith. You know what I'm saying? With all that,
you can find a top end wide receiver in the second and third round. It happens all the time.
But
Stephon
you're still
Diggs
wanting him to develop, though. It doesn't always pop immediately.
That's fine.
Green Bay.
That's fine, and that's totally okay.
Ask Green Bay.
That's totally okay. You're not looking to win just in 23. I don't know. I when I look as a whole for those two guys, 4 picks, I don't know.
I think you are looking at it as a whole if you keep the guys there. But
yeah,
anyway.
Here's the thing. There's a reason why you're looking for a new head coach. You're talking about what head coach, like what's going to be attractive. There's a reason why these head coaches or these positions are open is because the team's bad. So any new head coach that's going to a new team, it's because the team is bad.
That doesn't mean that everybody on the team is bad, though.
Oh, I know.
Like you can have superstar players like Christian McCaffrey, like DJ Moore, Brian Burns, who are just on bad teams, who receive some bad coaching, who maybe don't have all the pieces put together yet. But you put the right pieces. Look at Miami. You put the right pieces around some of the stars that are there. All of a sudden, some stuff is happening, and they didn't do a fire sale in Miami to get rid of everybody. Well, you can still acquire other people while keeping the main folks on your roster.
Well, not how they got all those picks and those players.
They did trade some people.
Well, they traded Laramie Tunsil for first-round picks, who is a top 10 left tackle, which is a position of need and priority in the NFL. They traded him away to the Texans, got picks, and they also moved down in the draft with the San Francisco 49ers and acquired future first-round picks, which turned into Tyreek Hill, which turned into them trading up to take Jalen Waddle, which turned into Bradley Chubb. So that's the thing but here's the thing.
You're talking about one person. You are trying to get rid of Moore and Burns.
2 guys.
I'm not getting rid of those guys, and I already got rid of CMC. I'm sorry.
CMC isn't going to help your team in 2 years anyway. With the running back,
I got you, but I'm saying I'm not talking about him helping the team. I'm talking about I already got rid of him.
Yeah, I know.
We've already gotten rid of him. You're talking about the Dolphins, what they did off of flipping one person. Let's give the Panthers time to see what they're going to do off of that one flip of that one person. You're talking about adding 2 more and making it 3. No way. You're going to lose the community right there. Because those are your first round hits that you have over the last 5 years. DJ Moore, Brian Burns, Christian McCaffrey. You're going to get rid of all of them for other first round picks when you already have those guys there and established? No way.
Are you talking about losing the community? If you'll start winning again, it ain't going to matter.
That's very true.
Ain't going to matter. You start winning again, it doesn't matter.
You're going to need a head coach for that. And, we know that
Brian Flores. Talk about the Dolphins. Brian Flores.
But, I don't even really want to talk about the Panthers game. I just say I was wrong. Those 21 points they scored in the second half don't mean a thing.
No.
They lost 42-21, but those 21 points don't mean a thing.
But we can go full Jeff Bizdelli and be like, hey, we outscored them 21-7 in the second half. So I can go full Matt Rule on that situation. Like, hey, at the end of the day, look at the second half, we outscored them, 21-7.
Okay, good point. Good point. Good point.
But when,
so
let's
stay
Cincinnati
right.
was like
Let's stay right
backup
here for a second.
quarterback.
Matt Rule, after that game, what would his reaction been? Because after that game for Steve Wilkes, he was like, we didn't have him prepared. He was so upset. He was angry. And then the next day he fires 2 coaches.
Yeah.
He fires the defensive line coach and he fires one of his DB coaches.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like that is the response after that type of a game. What do you think Matt Rule's response, like his true response would have been after that? I don't think anybody gets fired under Matt Rule after that game.
No, not at all. At the end of the day, when I look at, you're going to go back and check the tape, but we look and see the second half, we didn't have that stretch where we did outscore them 21-7. If we outscore teams, for every touchdown they score, if we score 3 touchdowns, we can be one of the best efficient teams, across the league. So we just got to do that on a more consistent basis. But I got to go back and check the tape and really make sure that we put our guys in position to make sure that we're outscoring them 21-7 every single half.
Do you remember? I want to say this was in 2000, either 16 or 17. I'm trying to look it up right now. But I believe it was Benet Benwickery. If I'm getting this right, I'm trying to look it up just to make sure. He had that horrible game where 2016, he gave up over 300 yards to Julio Jones alone. And you thought that Benwickery was going to be a part of the Carolina Panthers' future as far as their secondary. He gave up 300 yards to Julio Jones. That was his assignment. He was released the next day. That move that Steve Wilkes made, that is, and when Shaq Thompson says like, hey, he's holding us to that old standard of what used to go on when we were here, this is a part of what he means. You have a game like that that's embarrassing, and you're not going to be around anymore because you have to come to work every day prepared. And that's one of the things I do like about the move. I'm not a proponent of anybody losing their job, but you also know that Steve Wilkes is at least saying, even if I'm not here next year, I want everybody in here to remember to always put your best foot forward. Because if you're not, you can be gone in a second. And you will be gone, especially if I'm here, if you're not giving your all. And the defensive line did not look like they had it together in that game.
Nope.
The secondary did not look like they had it together in that game. And those are the 2 guys that lost their jobs. And this was the first time that we thought this season that the Panthers defense wasn't good. Because the Panthers defense has shown up every game besides this Bengals game.
Yeah, for the most part, the defense has been really good this season. Now you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you're like, oh, this is the Panthers. This is who they thought they were. Yeah, because here's the thing. It's amazing how your trajectory from one game and really one moment changed their season, because if they do pull out that win against Atlanta, whether it's Eddie Pinheiro kicking the PAT, granted it was a 48-yarder, but still a makeable kick. But if Pinheiro makes a PAT.
If DJ Moore wasn't flagged.
He shouldn't have been flagged.
That's another thing.
He should not have been flagged because he was technically out of bounds. Should not be flagged for that. But Pinheiro makes a kick in overtime, 33-yard kick in overtime, which would have won the game. Now you're sitting atop of the division. Everything's different now, because now you're like, oh, we're 3-5. We're tied atop 3-4. We're tied atop the NFC South.
Yeah.
Why? Okay. You have a little bit different thing as opposed to now we're 2 games back of a team we just lost to. So I don't know, it's amazing how that stuff, just one moment can shift the trajectory of your season. Now, granted, there's still the Panthers. They're still not that great of a team. At the end of the day, they're not that good of a team yet.
I'm still holding out hope for a Christmas Eve win at home, final home game of the season against the Detroit Lions. If they can at least get that, I'm fine with everything else. Okay. And I hope they beat your Steelers too.
Yeah, well, of course you do. Of course you do.
So I can have some type of bragging rights over you.
I'm actually okay if the Steelers lose that game, because I too want a really high draft pick.
Oh, we're both getting them.
Oh yeah, I know, but
we're both getting them.
I want to sit there and stake claim, like, yeah, that's right, Steelers are picking ahead of you.
Because we
That's
stink.
okay, they do stink. God, Matt, you were talking about Matt Canada. He stinks.
Yeah.
Gosh, former NC State offensive coordinator, which somehow failed his way up to being an NFL offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you mean the Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, or former offensive coordinator at NC State, that got fired at NC State.
Yeah.
Now he's coaching in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. Oh, and they stink. Go figure. Go figure. But
let's get back to Carter. We were talking about Carter Finley. You're going to talk about the atmosphere there.
I did. So
David Tepper was wrong for his hire on Matt Rule, and we know that.
Oh, yeah.
I was also wrong this past weekend on Saturday, on Culture State Saturday, saying, man, I have a good feeling about this game for the Carolina Panthers and the Bengals. I think the Panthers could go out there and they could win because they're going to win it in the trenches. Their defensive line is going to be better than the Bengals' bad offensive line. Boy, was I wrong. And boy, was I wrong about NC State and Wake Forest.
Man,
I don't
totally
think
wrong
I've ever
on
been
that.
more wrong than I was this past weekend.
I was way off on State Wake Forest. Way off.
I think everybody was, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting a Wake Forest win. Okay, which makes sense because MJ Morris is getting his first career start for NC State at quarterback, a true freshman. Their offense has not looked good over the last few weeks, especially against Virginia Tech before that. With the exception of like the last half of the fourth quarter. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions. And can NC State's defense hold up for a long time against Wake Forest offense if the offense is struggling and doesn't give them any sort of help? Oh, was it different? It's like, oh, by the way, NC State's like, oh, yeah, you know what? We should actually run like a modern offense. We can actually, we could throw the ball down the field. That's an option. Oh, we can make those decisions as a coaching staff to throw the ball down the field. Why didn't you do it with Devin Leary?
We also didn't anticipate Wake Forest coming off of an 8 turnover game to continue to turn the ball over, because just knowing Dave Clawson and how he is, from my time covering him over when I was in Winston-Salem, like you usually don't get those back-to-back games that are like that with them, especially with an established quarterback like Sam Hartman, who is going to go down as one of the best in the ACC. I mean, he has so many touchdowns. He's close to I think he can catch Phillip Rivers for the most touchdown passes.
He might. Sounds about right.
He's really close. It's one of those stats that's there. I believe it's touchdown passes over his course in the ACC. So, I mean, Sam Hartman will be one of the GOATs in the ACC, and you just don't assume that he's going to come and continue to turn the ball over like that.
Yeah.
You would think that a game like NC State would be the bounce-back game for Wake Forest, and, man, when they don't score a 30, they're not winning.
Yeah.
And this was another game that showed that.
I was at the game, and I was actually down on field level, which, by the way, go to @CultureStatePod on Twitter and Instagram, putting there the nice little fun highlight video. To our friend Cesar Comanche, who was in studio with us just recently, a little music from him. Make sure you're here on YouTube that you subscribe to that and check that out. Elbow drop that subscribe button here on 99.9 The Fans YouTube page. Now, I was down on the field level, and just watching the game, Sam Hartman was uncomfortable the whole night. There was constant pressure. They blitzed like crazy. Like Gibson and that defensive coaching staff for NC State was just all up in Sam Hartman's grill the whole night. He was constantly, even when he wasn't getting hit or touched, his feet were never settled the whole game. Now, there's definitely some big chunk plays that they picked up because it's Wake Forest offense. They are good. But he was just under duress the entire night. Big shout out to NC State's defense because they balled out that game.
Sure did.
Absolutely balled out that game. They also showed that there have been moments this season where they've been not quite up to that level, moments of inconsistency. It's college football. You're going to have that. But, man, they looked like one of the best defenses out there on Saturday night against Wake Forest. And they were like 3 turnovers against Hartman, I think 5 sacks as well. Drake Thomas was all over the place. Peyton Wilson's a monster. Isaiah Moore, those 3 guys at linebacker, you can argue the best linebacking trio in the country.
Yeah. They definitely came to play, and obviously they saw something on tape with if we do this to Sam Hartman, then check the tape. If they saw something on tape where, hey, if we do this to Sam Hartman to show him this type of a look, he's going to throw the ball right to us, and that's kind of what happened. And it was very foreign to see.
Being on the field during that game, in-state rivalry, that place was just fully amped. It was a night game at Carter Finley Stadium. That place was ramped up to an 11. That place was electric. And it was the back and forth of that game, because remember early on, they were trading off touchdowns. Now, NC State ended up pulling away. Wake Forest got the late touchdown to kind of make it close, but it was a pretty back and forth game for much of it. And the Carter Finley was just, it was packed. You know, everyone talks about, at halftime, everyone leaves and it doesn't really come back. 8 minutes left in the third quarter, everyone was back in their seats because it meant that much. And I think it was also a bit of we talk about the state title. There's a lot of pride on the line for state of North Carolina in terms of who's the best team in the state of North Carolina.
Yep.
And right now it's coming down to two schools who meet the day after Thanksgiving. It's going to probably come down to State, and it's going to come down to UNC. Now, UNC still has to play Wake Forest, okay? Now, Wake Forest also still has to play Duke coming up, but looking at transitive property and all that kind of stuff, it's really going to come down to State and UNC, which I think is going to be probably the most NC State thing ever to happen. Is they're going to beat North Carolina the last regular season game, but watch North Carolina still go to the ACC championship game representing the Coastal and beat Clemson and go to the Orange Bowl.
Or
that would be the very NC State thing to happen.
Or look at this. I mean, what if you have Wake Forest lose to NC State? What if NC State loses to Carolina, and Carolina loses to Wake Forest? Then you basically have a tie. And that's something that actually really could happen, where
it could.
You have these teams, these three teams in the state of North Carolina that are almost there. They are literally scratching the surface, but they can't get out of their own way for whatever reason. Individually, they have their individual issues. For Wake Forest, it looks like it's turnovers and defense right now. For NC State, they're fixing their problem. It's offense. They're looking a little bit better. For Carolina, it's definitely their defense, and they allow teams to come back in games. They never really put teams away. And so because of that, what if Sam Hartman, and this could be old by the time people are watching this, but, if Sam Hartman has a bad game, Carolina can, definitely allow Wake Forest to get back into that game really fast. So there's a chance that this ends up kind of in a three-way tie.
It could. There's definitely the potential for that. I'm not going to deny that at all. But the way things are shaping up, where things stand at this moment, which we all know it changes just like that.
Yep.
It's going to look like it's going to come down to State and UNC. And again, I think it's going to be hysterical if State beats UNC, but UNC ends up beating Clemson and still goes to a New Year's Six Bowl. NC State would go 10-2, having beat North Carolina, and North Carolina goes to a New Year's Six Bowl. That would be very NC State.
It would be.
It would
and
be
man,
NC State.
Twitter, if Twitter is still around by then, would be set ablaze. First off, okay, before we get out of here, I don't. Are you verified? I can't remember if you're verified.
I'm not verified on Twitter. No.
Would you pay $8 a month for verification?
No.
I think I'm fine now. It's like I've been verified for a few years. Whatever. I don't need verification that bad to pay you for verification. Pat Welter put out a tweet where he was saying it's crazy that people would pay for something like that. And here we also have musicians who are getting thousands of streams who can't get money. And I was like, well, we've valued clout over talent.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now. People won't pay for music. They'll pay for verification, which means we're in a part of society where clout is much more important than actual talent.
Yeah.
Just want to put that out there. Kind of sad state of affairs.
Yep.
I want to thank you guys for watching, listening, however you're consuming us. YouTube, WRLSportsFan.com, WRL Sports Plus, whatever it is, we want to say thank you. And we love celebrating the state of North Carolina. Also, celebrate with us every Saturday morning, 10 to noon, 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh, or also 10 to noon on WRLSportsFan.com or the WRL Sports Fan app or WRL Sports Plus. We're literally not hard to find.
Elbow drop that subscribe button there on YouTube, 99.9 The Fan's YouTube page.
Dennis Cox and Chris Lee about to dig in the crate, so turn it up, cause it's time for the culture state. Yeah, we do it for the culture, home of the greats, in the Carolina hood from the culture state. Chris Lee and Dennis Cox about to dig in the crate, so turn it up, cause it's time for the culture state. Yeah.